Welcome. I am so excited to do this wonderful kind of impromptu live. You know, we are always healing trauma for real over here. And I've invited a special guest. Really, I probably shouldn't call her a guest. She's really my sister, my partner in crime, really my partner in healing. But we are going to talk about love addiction. Now, don't click off because I promise you, many of you may have a symptom or three, and you probably don't even know it. But because we're healing from toxic relationships and healing from trauma, this is something that we had to really talk about and unpack. So I have the perfect guest, the host of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together, Ursula B. Please briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Cerita, for having me on here. This is going to be fun and informative. But my name is Ursula B. I am the podcast host of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. It's an audio podcast as well as a YouTube podcast. And what we do, we talk about mental health and wellness. How can we heal? I like to share tools and resources, which is how I met Cerita. So she's been a guest several times on my podcast. So it's an honor to be on the other side of the microphone.
Yes, thank you and welcome. So let's just dive right in.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So, one of the first things, and I invite you to share your thoughts and perspectives because, of course, we work together closely on what is love addiction. And I know you're about to say something.
I'm thinking, my face shows everything I've
I
been
know it.
told.
I know it, and I love it. It's interesting because this is the first time that I've been on this side of the microphone, so I'm like, but
That's right.
I'm just gonna do what I know how to do, which is talk. And so feel free to jump in as I just flow into a little bit about what love addiction is,
Okay.
because it is a behavioral pattern. So when we talk about toxic relationships, dysfunctional relationships, they all involve behavioral patterns, learned ways of relating and dealing and communicating or avoiding those things. And so with love addiction, an individual becomes dependent on the feeling of being in love or a romantic relationships. And it's often used as a way to cope with unresolved trauma.
Mm.
So, unlike healthy love, love addiction is there is no reciprocity. Healthy love requires mutual respect, trust, interdependence, and love addiction is characterized by an excessive need for validation,
Mm.
codependency, and sacrificing your personal well-being for the sake of your partner. Does that sound familiar?
So let's get real with it. Let's
Do it.
let's can we talk about how it can look in our everyday life.
I love that.
You know,
Right.
I'll share my experience since this is a judge-free zone.
Mhm.
So, and we'll definitely talk about Love You, but from taking attending your classes, I'm realizing that I had fantasies. Yeah, I know, right?
Me too.
Fantasies of a toxic relationship, but I was going to force that circle into this square peg and make it the most Michelle and Barack Obama beautiful love story ever. Meanwhile, it was borderline Ike and Tina.
I love that. I love the realness and I love the truth.
Yeah.
So let me, I'm still in my professional host mode. Let me just get real. When it comes to love addiction, a lot of us we get caught up, including me, because see, it's important to understand that trauma is the root cause. And a lot of us have survived trauma. We survived dysfunctional families of origin or caregivers who were neglectful or abusive in some way. And the way that we typically dealt with that as children is to create fantasies, to tell
Mm,
ourselves stories, to try to manipulate our pain and then manipulate things that were going on or we've experienced by seeking comfort in our own minds, in our own heads. And really, the first stage with love addiction is idealization. And ironically, that is the one of the first stages when we talk about trauma bonds, right?
What is idealization?
Well, idealization is when an individual becomes infatuated with their new partner, believing that they are perfect or that they were meant to be. See,
Hence ignoring the red flags?
exactly.
Mm,
Because essentially, when we struggle with these dysfunctional relational patterns, we see what we want to see in our partners or potential partners or in people. And not so ironically, when you think about childhood trauma,
mhm.
um, a lot of women, a lot of sisters that I've worked with, they do not really know that they've been traumatized, particularly by their parents, because they
Mm.
idealize their parents. They see their parents as what they want to the way they want to see them, because in order to survive, we have to stay bonded. Even if they hurt us or neglect us in some way or they're emotionally invalidating, we still need them. So
So
we
you're
idealize
saying
them.
it carries over from the childhood?
That becomes a pattern
Oh
of
my god.
relating, a pattern of how you approach relationships is the idealization. And, things contribute to that fantasy, the Disney fantasy, like you said. So
Right.
that's an idealization of, oh, well, this person can save me. This person is the one. This person will be my soulmate.
Well, then how can you tell the difference if it's a healthy love or the idealization or the fantasy bond?
Well, in a healthy relationship, generally, people take time to really get to know one another. So there's no immediate, and there may be, because there is a such thing, many people do believe in it, as love at first sight, but you can have feelings and you can believe that the person is the one while you are still getting to know them. You're not thrusting your perceptions or your potential ideas or your potential list onto your new partner. And
Mhm.
see, the thing is with trauma bonds and even love addiction, because they're one and the same in a lot of ways, often there that we bypass that getting to know you stage. It's like you're the one, we're jumping right in, we're going real fast, and someone who's a narcissist or a manipulator, they want you to jump in quick. They are
Mm.
pushing for the relationship because they want to get you bonded real quickly, because they ain't gonna be able to hold up that goddamn mask for too much longer. So they want to get you bonded, get you working, and if you're a love addict, anything that might threaten the relationship or anytime you think they might pull away, then that will trigger you. Yeah, that will
Ah,
trigger that love addiction, and then we start well, I'm jumping ahead. But it will trigger you. So you asked me a question, but let me stop talking for a moment.
well, while you're talking, I stay in a constant state of trigger or because it's resonating, but I'm just thinking about the manipulation. This is why it's important to do the work because you just said it. If you're dating a narcissist and they want to just love bomb you, and it feels so good because some of us, and I've been that person too. Like we just crave that love, and if it just sounds good, like that's just enough,
And this is why we have to heal, okay? So you need
right?
to sign up for the Love You Challenge, because here's the deal. If two people have, unresolved trauma, they're both idealizing each other. The narcissist, that's the first stage in the trauma bond, is the idealization love bombing.
Mm.
So they see you as the person that can, meet their needs and meet their perfectionistic needs that are completely unobtainable, and so that's why they do all the work to getting to know you. They're not really exposing themselves. They're not being vulnerable. Healthy relationships require two people to have vulnerability and share themselves and communicate. But see, a narcissist, he's going, or she is going to look like, pretend, or encourage all of your vulnerabilities, all of the tools that they need to later weaponize against you. And
Mm.
so, yes, they are idealizing you because they're telling you that you're the one, and they're positioning themselves as being the one. And you are not really paying attention to the red flags. If you
No.
got a little bit of love addiction, you're making excuses. They're slowly encroaching and violating boundaries because they're boundary testing, because that's what they do. So we're doing similar things in the idealization stage, but the end results may look a little bit different in how both parties, both people in that trauma bond behave.
So is there a certain pattern or a cycle on what the love addiction looks like,
That's
or
a great
is it just a one hit and how did I get here? I'm just
Absolutely.
asking
So
because if people are new to this, we
mhm.
want to know, what are key signs to look out for?
Absolutely, and that's why we're here.
Mhm.
So the first stage is idealization. That's the infatuation we're meant to be. The second stage is obsession. So a love addict may be codependent and become preoccupied with the relationship. So the relationship becomes the thing that they live for. They may often neglect their own needs, their own interests, even their own feelings and perceptions in pursuit of the relationship. And then the third stage is disillusionment.
Ooh,
And
what is
the
that?
individual, ew, was that?
What is that? I never heard of that term.
Yeah, yeah, yes, you did. You heard it in
Ah,
class. So disillusionment means that you start to see the flaws. So not only is their mask coming off, but the fantasy starts to deteriorate, it's breaking down, and the relationship is it can lead to the breaking down can lead to feelings of disappointment and dissatisfaction. So now it's like
oh.
that you're triggered as you become disillusioned and you really start seeing reality and the person for what they really are, uh,
Mhm.
that can trigger all kinds of feelings, including fear of abandonment, including fear of rejection, all kinds of stuff. But see, the truth is, when we are in these dysfunctional relationship cycles, often we abandon ourselves. And
Mm.
it absolutely when you start to see the other person for who they are and not what you made them out to be, all those feelings, not only from the relationship, but even your own feelings of your self-denial can come to the surface. And the final stage is despair.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say brick those windows out or flip the table.
Bust the windows out the car. I didn't say that.
I'm just
So
joking, everyone, kind of, but go ahead.
I
I'm
So,
joking.
when we are stuck in this cycle, we might feel emotional turmoil. So it's can be very confusing. And so as the relationship ends or breaks down, their partner becomes distant, and it often leads one to either seek out a new partner or seek out a new relationship to start the cycle again. Now, some because if we're struggling with fear of abandonment, which a lot of us who have had or experienced any kind of love addiction, that fear of abandonment can cause one to try to hold on to the relationship, to fight for the relationship, to sacrifice more. That feeling of insecurity becomes even heightened. And so you're trying to work harder to keep the relationship before you get to the actual despair stage. So that fear of abandonment can have us doing all kinds of things and being triggered with all kinds of emotions that are related to our trauma. That is what is being triggered. But if you don't know that, you're going to think, I just love this person so much. And, it just hurts. It's just, they're not, I didn't, they're not who I thought they were. And, I was just so happy. And I just thought that, we're going to live happily ever after. When in
Mhm.
reality, it's your childhood wounds that are coming to the surface and flooding you, and it's a lot. It can
And
be
you know
overwhelming.
what it sounds like when you were talking? It sounds like an extremely high anxiety relationship. That's a lot of work to keep a fragile relationship that was never anything from the beginning. It's like like wet tissue paper, and we steady trying to put it together and make it hard, but that's very high anxiety just on a wish and a prayer of what it would mm, what we thought it could be, what we wanted it to look like.
Well, that's a very good point, and thank you for making that because, um, some of us choose these kinds of relationships unconsciously for that very reason because they are high anxiety. because that high anxiety is familiar.
Million. Can I say something? What I learned in your class, the compulsion, repetition compulsion.
That's it. That's it. And so that's
Lord.
it. That repetition compulsion or the compulsion to repeat
Mhm.
is a symptom or a common symptom of for trauma survivors, which if you haven't been through my challenge, I will explain in depth because it is the thing that will have us being attracted to relationships and situations that remind us of our painful childhood traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
So excuse me, and a lot of us probably who have symptoms of codependency or love addiction are more on the insecure attachment style side. So that means that
Mhm.
if we're not in a relationship or if the relationship is threatened or the person distances themselves or withdraws in some way, then we can feel very anxious. And that's a result of childhood trauma, which is
Mhm.
why we tend to attract people who are on the opposite end of the trauma spectrum. And those people are more of the narcissistic type or they have narcissistic traits because we can guarantee that that person will devalue because for the trauma bond stage is idealization, devaluation, and discard. So the relationship is going to end, meaning that they're going to go through the cycle, but see, they need some supply. And if they need supply because they're addicted to self-esteem, or I should say esteem, getting esteem from you, the love addict, but you're also addicted to needing to be needed, right? And
Mhm.
so that's the cycle that both sides are going through. I hope I didn't make that sound complicated, but we're all doing the same thing in a different way.
Yeah, it doesn't sound complicated. I mean, not in my ears. Just because when you said that we both sides are having the same cycles, it just
Mhm.
looks different. It just seems like we're just triggering each other,
We
but
are.
constantly. But I'm curious, just from your professional standpoint, have you known of any of the stages to be longer than others? So,
Well,
like,
see,
what are those 4 stages?
you're talking about for love addiction?
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't think there's no specific length of time that these, relationships can take because, for example, with a narcissistic relationship, the idealization stage could last for years. And
Mm.
I've seen some of the research talking about that. Like there isn't a specific um, pattern because human
Mhm.
beings are different relationships, the relationship dynamics. So, for example, let's say two people, a love addict and a narcissist, get together. But of course, the narcissist works a lot, is a workaholic. That relationship might have a chance of lasting longer because we're not triggering each other as much. I'm using my work or my workaholic tendencies in order to avoid intimacy, in order to avoid being close to you. So we're
Right.
in a relationship, but not really. So those stages could be very different depending on all kinds of situations and circumstances.
Well, speaking of situations, would situationships be considered part of a love addiction?
It could be, depending on the dynamics. Because
Really?
could 2 healthy people be in a situationship if they choose to be? Like, we're not really together, maybe we're friends with benefits, maybe we both enjoy what we're getting, and people can choose not to be in a relationships for a myriad of reasons, not just, out of dysfunction. It could be out of dysfunction, but it could be like, I just got out of a relationship. I am working, I don't have time to commit right now. You see what I'm
Mhm,
saying? And
mhm.
so there could be real reasons why people choose to have a relationship light. You know what I'm saying? Easy breezy.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that
yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not gonna come with any kind of consequences or people aren't gonna change their minds and want something more. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yeah, people can choose that. Now, some of us choose that as the default, and that comes from some kind of trauma or dysfunctional relationship patterns.
What do you mean choose it as the default? Meaning what, they will settle even though they want more of the relationship?
Absolutely. They
Ah,
will settle, or if they're a love addict, they will idealize the relationship. They will, perceive that the relationship is more than what it was. You know what I mean? Like, they will say that they're in a relationship, but the person never once said they or agreed to the terms of conditions of being in a relationship with you. And
mm,
I've had conversations with clients who were in relationships, but not really, and then they told me that the person has told them repeatedly that they don't want a relationship, but and then when I say that back to them, I said, "Well, there's no chance of you being in a relationship." And I remember one beautiful, bright woman, she said, "Why not?" I said, "Because he told you many times." Like, "You just told me that, didn't you?" And she was silent, like, she was stunned, like, "Did you forget?" And
mm.
so but I think that's part of our disillusionment that we can operate from because of our trauma.
You know, I'm thinking of warning signs and how it can look. For me, I'm thinking if it's a cycle. So, for example, if it's a narcissistic relationship,
Mhm.
when person A starts to pull away because they're tired of the narcissistic tendencies,
Mhm, so
it
like
seemed
the
like
love
that's
addict?
say that again.
You said so like the love addict starts to pull away?
Yes, good. Yeah, the love addict when they'll start pulling away.
Mhm.
And it seems like that narcissistic person or whoever that partner is, like they start the cycle all over again
They do.
to get that, you
They
know,
do.
fuel it again. I just think that that's a slight warning sign that that could be because I can think of times I've thought, or even some of my friends or family members, well, they're acting nice now and thinking that the love is rekindled, but really it's
Mhm.
not.
Well, that's part of our disillusionment
Mhm.
because part of the cycle so we're talking about love addiction. Love addicts tend to attract people who are love avoidant. They run from love. They will avoid it at all costs. They not down with intimacy whatsoever. But the truth be told, a lot of love addicts are not down with intimacy either. We just don't realize it. And so what
Mm.
happens is part of that trauma bond stage after the discard, it's a stage called hoovering. So for a
Yeah.
someone with high narcissistic traits, they need supply because they are completely detached from themselves, who they are. So I need something to fill this deep void. You know what I'm saying? Where I should be connected to my own soul, but I'm not. And so they're always looking for supply and attention.
Mhm.
And so if the love addict is like, okay, she pulls away, then that will trigger that narcissist to try to go back right into the trauma bond stages, which is the love bombing.
Would that be anxiety for them? That yeah, right?
Anxiety for who?
The narcissist. When they
I
feel that person pull away because their fuel source is leaving.
Yeah, but I wouldn't label that anxiety. Could they feel anxiety? I suppose. But
Oh,
remember, we're talking about okay, so let me first say this. Let me qualify. Narcissistic traits are on a spectrum. So it's not
true.
just someone is a narcissist or not, because
Mhm.
there are quite a few people who have narcissistic traits. And remember, narcissism, all humans have the capacity for narcissism, and all children start out as narcissistic. It's called a narcissistic stage. So it's
Mm,
not something that we need to shame or feel shame about
right.
because we all have the capacity for narcissism because we have to in order to survive and get our needs met. But
Mhm.
obviously, when you become an adult or as you mature, it don't work. So for a narcissist or narcissistic traits, it's a spectrum on how those traits show up, how these people interact in relationships. And so
Mhm.
you're saying, well, could it be anxiety? And I'm saying that we're talking about personalities. So
Mm.
this is the way that these people have learned to relate. And so they could feel anxious, but a lot of times, especially if they have high narcissistic traits, they're not really feeling anxiety about you because it's all about them. They're
Right.
looking for that attention and that validation. They're looking for to get back into the game because
Mhm.
that for the game for them is the relationship, is the cycle.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
And they have to have that in order to boost up their very low, very fragile self-esteem.
Absolutely, absolutely. So earlier I heard you talk about, when you talked about an anxious attachment. So for those who have not heard about attachment theories and attachment styles, can you explain how attachment can look with a love addict?
So that's a great I love the way you frame that question. So
Mhm.
let me give the brief overview. Attachment styles are really your love blueprint. And the research suggests that our attachment styles are basically solidified around the age of 3. Yes, you can learn how to have or change or amend your attachment styles, but generally it's about um, experiencing from your family of origin, from your parents or your caregivers, how to navigate relationships, which means how you navigate the world. So a secure attachment means that all your needs were met. You were given consistent love and attention, support, nurturance, validation, protection. Not perfect, but consistent. So you
Ooh.
were allowed to be exactly who you are. You are encouraged to be who you are, and you are given that space in order to develop agency. So all of that teaches a child that I am worthy, I'm lovable, I'm important. Now, for the insecure attachment style, which is what we were talking about with the love addicts,
Mhm.
insecure attachment style is they tend to default to insecurity in relationships, particularly if they perceive any kind of threat. So if you think about a child, when a child enters a new environment,
Right.
right? They're holding on to the parents' leg, they looking around like, I don't know what's up. And they will venture off more easily. They will go out and explore, and they'll look back, see if
Mhm.
home base is there, but it's like, "Okay, I know I'm safe, right? I know I'm protected. I know I'm cared for. It's all good. If you leave me at the daycare or school or whatever, I know that you're going to come back." But it takes
Right.
me a while to learn that, but I learned that because you're consistent with me. You're always showing up when I need you. You hear my cries. You hug me and calm me down when I need that. And for children who, on both sides, whether it's insecure or fearful or avoidant, something went wrong. Meaning the child did not get what the child needed. Their child did not get that consistent caring, or not just caring, but even nurturance, support, validation, all of those things. And the more extreme and the more early the disconnects are, the more impact it has on our adult relationships or our relationships in general. The reason is because your brain becomes developed, right? You're young. So your brain is developing in a way to help you navigate a hostile world or a world where you're not taken care of or your needs are not met. You're not given attention and care. So the more that happens, we can become insecure, which means we need it, we clingy, we worried about it, we're afraid.
Mhm.
What's going to happen? And the more we need other people, the more we might become love addicts because I need that. I need it. I never got it. So I must have it at any cost. The relationship ends. I got to jump right back into another relationship because I feel empty. I feel alone. I feel desperation. And the other side, to make this long story shorter, is if someone is hurt or abused, they may become more avoidant. So any kind of intimacy, any kind of request or initiation for vulnerability, I'm going to shut down, I'm going to withdraw, I'm going to focus on all the external things, work, how I look, become perfectionist. I might become a narcissist or have high narcissistic traits because no one met my needs. And the only way I could get my needs met was through manipulation. That was a long
Mm.
answer, but that was a big question. So,
It was, and it's so weighted. But, going back what you said earlier about when a child is young and being secure
Mhm.
because they receive consistent support,
Consistency is the
and it
key.
made sense because it clicked why if it's insecure, how we're attracted to the inconsistencies of a
Absolutely.
relationship.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
That's it. We are attracted to people who are familiar and who will love us the way that our original rejecting parent loved us. That's why we got to heal.
Okay, that's deep. Ooh, the rejecting parent.
Yeah.
That's
Y'all can
something
ask
I
some questions
learned.
in the chat too. But
Oh,
that's it. We are attracted to that.
ooh, that's something else. The rejecting parent.
Mhm. That's that repetition compulsion.
Mhm. And I
Mhm.
recently experienced this at work with my full-time job. We were talking, this was when I was out in the field, and one of the clients had said, "Well, it doesn't matter if why would this child be why would they complain? They were fed, sheltered, and clothed. What's the problem? Why they shouldn't have any problems?" And I had explained, but there's also an emotional component to it. Ah, that's the answer I got. Ah, they'll be all right. But talking to you, we see how it looks. I know.
There are people, particularly, older generations, who share this sentiment of, you know, what is the problem? Your
Mhm.
physical needs were taken care of. And we know through research,
Ooh,
we
let's
know
hear
through
this.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs that all human beings have a hierarchy of needs. Safety, being fed, clothing, sleep, safe environments, absolutely foundational. But the next on the order of hierarchy is a sense of belonging. So you absolutely
Ah.
need connection, community, people around you who love and care for you. We need it as human beings. And the problem with that, with the some of the, these elders like, well, I don't know what's the problem. Y'all young generation, y'all talk about feelings.
And soft. Y'all soft.
And they don't even realize that a lot of them are love avoidant. They
Yeah.
withdraw from love. They're disconnected from love. They struggle with vulnerability and intimacy, and their relationships are dysfunctional as hell. But then
Mm,
they will tell you, "You're always talking about feelings." And so really what they're really showing you is more of who they are, not about what you want or what
absolutely.
you need or what you're worthy of. So we cannot listen to that in terms of or accept that as if there's something wrong with us because we care about our feelings. We are supposed to. It is our right.
That was loaded. And I love that. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm always let me look that up, that Maslow's thing. I've heard of it, and it was a long time ago, but I have different eyes and ears now. So it's good to go back and look because I don't ever remember recalling about the belonging part being the emotional factor of it.
Well, the thing is, I think that Maslow's hierarchy of needs came out a long time ago. What we've learned a lot more about human development and trauma since that hierarchy was actually created. So we know from like adverse childhood experiences and
Mhm.
understanding trauma and human development and how the brain develops that
Mhm.
they didn't know. You know what I mean? They didn't know this at the time. These were some of the basics. The important thing about understanding your hierarchy of needs is that at the top of that pyramid is self actualization, meaning we're all wanting to grow, wanting to evolve, really to realize our potential and be everything that we already are. But you
Mhm.
can't do that if you're hungry. You can't do that if you say you can't be thinking about, your brain ain't gonna let you do it if you're hungry because your brain is going to direct you to survive. We need food right now. You could try.
Right.
You wanna, like, look at the stars and get a telescope and imagine being an astronaut. Hello? You know? The order of the day is survival. We're driven to survive biologically, and when we've experienced trauma, we have to rewire our brain, which is what trauma is about. I mean, therapy is about, and places like my communities, because you literally have to change the way that you
Mhm.
see and know what it means to survive and thrive.
Absolutely.
Don't
I
do the
love
work.
that. I
You
love
will be
that.
stuck in survival mode. You will sabotage yourself, you will sabotage your relationships and your life.
This is so true. So, can I take a page out of class?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, for people who are listening, if you are not in Sarita's community, I see Robin is here. So, what we're currently learning about are boundaries. So, I love it because I'm very big on boundaries. I wish I would have known then what I know now. But for those who have not taken her class, Sarita, I want you to answer, like, how does it look applying boundaries so that for people who are love addicts or do not know that they're love addicts, what are some boundaries? Well, how can they implement some boundaries so that we won't keep this toxic cycle going on? We're tired of it. We don't want it anymore. We want healthy love relationships, girl.
Well, I think when it comes to dysfunctional relationship patterns, healing from toxic relationships, codependency, or love addictions, boundaries are crucial. They're crucial. And sometimes some of the first boundaries that we have to implement are boundaries with ourself,
Mm,
because we have to begin to practice maintaining a sense of self. A lot of us struggle in relationships because we lose ourselves in relationships.
that is
And
so true. Because when people end up a relationship, and I'm speaking from personal experience too, I don't know what happened. I just lost myself. I just, where did the time go and who am I?
that's because that's what they learned how to do. So we can feel like,
Mm,
"Oh, yes, I'm out here, I'm getting degrees, I'm getting jobs, and I'm good." And that's good, because that means that you've mastered the basic survival skills, survival level. But in order to move up your
level
hierarchy
up,
of needs,
like
exactly, to get
Sierra.
that glow
Level up,
up,
level up.
you absolutely have to set boundaries, because if you become enmeshed or you morph into your partner, you
Mm,
lose your sense of self. You lose your sense of independence. And independence is not a bad thing that, a lot of people make it out to be, because we all need to come in with some sort of independence to have a healthy relationship and then become interdependent. So
mhm.
some of us, like a love avoidant person, they reject dependency just like a superwoman, okay?
Wait,
Uh,
wait, wait. Let me let that say that again. I want that to sink in my
a
head.
love avoidant person will reject dependency. They're not with dependency, like being dependent on their partner.
Oh, okay. That's what I get now. I wasn't sure which way you were talking about.
Well,
They are
I
not dependent on their partner.
that they reject that dependency, so it's like as we're bonding, trying to
Mhm.
become a unit in a relationship, that we're experiencing more intimacy, there's a level of dependence. Like, we are I'm depending on you for maybe some, care, emotional validation, that communication, that partnership aspect. Love avoidance will reject that because that requires too much intimacy. But that's going to trigger the love addict, because now, oh, again, I'm being abandoned. I'm
Right.
being dismissed. I'm being devalued.
But why would a love avoidant person, why would they even be in a relationship if they don't want the intimacy?
Why would a narcissist be in a relationship?
But what if they're not a narcissist?
But it's the same concept.
Is it?
Girl, same concept, meaning someone who's love avoidant. See, if we're honest, there are some men out here, and I'm just gonna call them out, who'll be like, "We don't need relationships. We don't want relationships."
Mhm. I know.
It's some bullshit because at the
Mhm.
same time, they'll be talking about, "We gonna go from a simp to a pimp." They still talking about how to connect with women, how to get a woman, how to seduce a woman. So they just
Right.
are getting faux intimacy, faux relationships. They want
Mhm.
it. You know what I'm saying? And so we all, even the superwoman, because one of the symptoms of the Black superwoman syndrome is a resistance to vulnerability. Do we want
Mm.
relationships? Absolutely, we do. We just don't really know how to have them without the dysfunction until we heal. So
Right.
someone who's love avoidant, they do want relationships, but they want relationships light. So they'll be the ones that say, "Well, let's just go with the flow.
I was just gonna say
Let's
that. Let's
just
see
see
what
where it
happens.
goes." Well, you wanna get married tomorrow? You're too needy. You want too much. So they want what they want, and they'll get from you everything that you're willing to give, but they will not be able to commit because essentially they're emotionally unavailable.
Damn.
And that is triggering. This is why we have to that's triggering.
Very.
But the thing is, they showed themselves in the beginning, but if we
Yeah.
idealize them, if we saw potential, shit that wasn't there, we just made it up,
Exactly.
and then it's gonna be some challenges along the way.
And that's why the work, I keep saying this, but I really mean it. That's why doing the work is so important. And you think about how much emotional pain can be avoided, how much years you can gain back
Girl.
from instead of being in the dead end relationships, because it was on life support before it started. It really was life support before we probably even met that person, and then two people that just trigger each other find each other, and there goes that cycle you're talking about.
See, the thing is, they
Mm.
are on life support, but you know what we do? Is we will breathe life into them. We will give the everything. We will give of ourselves. We will breathe life into the it's like the undead. You know what I'm saying? We will give and do and help and save and sacrifice. I know because I've tried. And so that ends up being extremely draining because the love addict or the codependent or the superwoman is not really getting their needs met because we're choosing people who do not have the capacity to meet our needs
Right.
because we're choosing from our trauma, not based on who
Yes.
they really are.
That trauma lens. It's
That's it.
real.
That's it.
So
That's
speaking of
it.
super women, what if there is a superwoman who's ready to take her cape off? And she wants some tools. She wants to learn how to set boundaries within herself. She wants to know how to recognize the red flag, because she does recognize it. She wants to learn on how to address the red flags and the love addiction, and she needs tools and resources. What
You
can she
know,
do?
I just wanna let you know you're an amazing host. You are fantastic. I
I
love it.
love
I'm here for
you.
it. I can't get enough of it. So that's a great question. You can sign up for the Love You Challenge, baby. This is why I have created my communities and the Love You Challenge because a lot of us are out here struggling, trying to figure it out. We listening to a bunch of podcasters with no degrees, lots of trauma, no damn common sense, full
Right.
of judgment and shame. We out here trying to fix ourselves, not even understanding what the real problem is. I
Mhm.
know because that was me.
Absolutely.
And
That's
so
us. It's been us. Yeah.
yes. And so sign up if you're ready, sign up for the Love You Challenge, baby, because I'm going to explain the root of trauma, the root of love addiction, the root of love avoidance, so that we can pull this thing out, baby, and heal for real. So,
Speaking of
and
healing for real, just to let people know, this is about self-care, but we're not burning candles and
girl, I don't play
we're
that.
not we're not burning candles and sage and No, we're not doing any of that. We're like she said, it gets to the root. But you know what? It is so needed and necessary because we go around, we exist with our eyes wide shut,
Girl.
and you end a relationship and then you learn, oh, I'm gonna get over this hurt. I'm gonna go get another relationship and restart that one. And then we're just collecting bodies.
With the same raggedy tools that you that the same raggedy things. And so I think that, one thing about it, about me, I need to let y'all know, I love all human beings, but I love Black women. Okay? I
Ooh,
love us because if it
yes.
weren't for Black women, I would not have survived. It was Black women who've always cared for me, and we will give and do and put the world on our back and make shit happen. But here's the thing, a lot of the way that we show up in relationships in the world, in our spirituality, comes from a place of being taught that your value meant you had to sacrifice yourself. And I think
Yeah,
now is the time that we must undo and destroy this idea that our worth comes from our work, and that we get to be just as we are, who we are. So that
absolutely.
means we're recovering our relationship with ourselves, and we deserve that. It is our right. And this is what I want for all of us to be able to teach our children.
And that is not a badge of honor.
Absolutely. And it's a lot
It
because it
is.
takes a lot for us to rest.
Can I share this story with you before I have to go?
Absolutely.
Talking about sacrificing oneself. I was at this place and I was talking to someone at the gym, and she was talking about how her mom had surgery. She had cancer, and they had to open her up to do what they had to do, the surgery. Well, the incision never healed correctly. So she's literally walking around and it's open, but she felt that she needed to take care of the entire family. And these are adult children and their grandkids. And she had a whole bunch of sick leave, but she felt like she needed to be the rock of the family. And my heart was just breaking because it resonated because we all have been super women. So when you're talking, it does fill me up because you're right. The time is to reclaim our own lives back, like our true self. Instead of this woman's walking around with an open wound just because she was getting validation because everyone was saying how good she was. And now she's not here with us.
That's crazy to me that the people around us, and this is why we do have to support each other in our sisterhood, because why would we ever allow someone to work themselves to death
Literally.
for our benefit and we do nothing to love and support them and intervene and to make sure that they're healthy and good?
Hmm.
That's beyond crazy to me. So that is my ask, that we just really continue that love and support for each other and for ourselves, not from a place of saving and sacrifice, but just really love and encouragement. So I know you got to go because Ursula has a hard stop, but can you briefly, because of course you've been in my classes for a long time,
Yeah.
just, let the ladies know like the transformations you've experienced?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I wish you asked me earlier because I could go on and on and on and on. But the transformation, wow. I relate to my family differently. I'm able to I'm working on boundaries. It's a constant work, but working on boundaries, how I hold with myself and definitely with my family members because I never experienced boundaries growing up. So I grew up into a person as a child and an adult being a people pleaser. And I didn't even think that anything was wrong with it. I just thought that's just what you do. So that's been one of the biggest breakthroughs. But one of the hugest breakthrough is what I used to be attracted to. This is talking about romantic relationships. It is not the same at all. Um, I didn't realize how toxic and even toxic light, if that's even such a thing, didn't realize it, but I do realize it now that I had been in a continuous cycle. And you know what? I couldn't see it because I didn't, except for one, but I didn't experience the relationship trauma with the cheating and financial. It was none of that. It's just that the men were emotionally unavailable. And they were good men, except for one. But all of them, they were good men and they still are. But I just knew that they were not for me because I wanted more of an emotional connection. But I was detached from myself. So how the hell am I going to ask for something from them that I didn't even know or even give to myself? So going to classes, you know what? I just said this yesterday. I don't think I even told you. I told someone because someone was asking me why I had to leave because your classes are on Tuesday. And she's like, "You going to that class again?" I said, "Yes." I promise you. And she said, "It must be something good." And you know what I told her, Sarita?
You
I
just never
said,
girl.
I said, literally every Tuesday, I learned something new about myself.
I love that.
I've never experienced that. Can you just imagine? You know, every Tuesday it's gonna come. I don't know how it's gonna look, but when we're on, it'll just be something. Even this little or it can be something huge, and I'm crying, and but that's okay too because it's still a breakthrough. So I love going to class. I try to make it when I can, even when I'm working. I'll even if I put it on mute on my end just so I can listen. But it's been breakthrough upon breakthrough, and it's also bled over into my professional. So I've been learning to speak up, and it's uncomfortable, but you just I just choose to go through it because just putting my toe in, just trying to, okay, let me use my voice, and it can be addictive.
I love it. I thank you for that. That girl, this is what it looks like when we heal for real. Because you've been in my class for how long? A year, 2 years now?
Almost close to 2 years.
And you
Wow.
you hear that, everybody? She learns something new every week. Y'all need to quit playing and come through because
Yeah.
I don't play about this. I don't play
Every
about this
Tuesday.
healing.
Every Tuesday. Every Tuesday.
I love it. I'm so grateful for you, and I thank you
Grateful for
and
you too.
just, being on this journey with you because it's a sisterhood for real, and I know
Hmm.
we can change everything together. We can
We
change
do. Can I add one more thing to class? I know I gotta
Sure.
go.
You
But what
do.
I love about class too is that no one judges anyone. People will cam up or not, but it doesn't matter when you speak. Everyone is supportive and they'll start throwing it in the chat. We love you, Sarita. We love you, whoever the person is.
Yeah.
It is a true sisterhood. And um, you feel lighter because you don't have to come to class with your mask on and that superwoman cape, as you call it. And it's just everyone's coming as their true self. So if anyone thinks, well, I don't want no one knowing my business, when I say we care, but we don't care about all of that, we're more about the support and the love. And when you get a taste of finding out about yourself, you'll become a true love addict.
Yes, I love that. That's a great way to end. I love it. I thank you. Y'all need to come get this love show up live for the Love You Challenge because, yes, and your transformation is your choice.
When
And
is the
every this
when is the challenge?
May 10th, we start May 10th.
Can I drop in?
I would love to have you. You don't have
Okay.
to ask for permission, baby. I would love to have you. So, yeah, this is what it's about. I am committed to this. I understand the assignment. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm willing to do all the sacrifice and all the work so that we can change the world. I love
If
y'all.
if y'all want a part two to this, because I have to go to work, if y'all want a part two, drop a number two in the chat before I leave. I need to see at least two number twos in the chat.
I
How
know
many?
that's right. And
Let me put my
and
two in.
please do subscribe to the Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together podcast.
Yes.
Join the YouTube channel because listen, if you want to get wonderful and necessary mental health information on all different kind of topics, sign up for your girl. This is what we're
Thank
doing.
you.
I love you.
This
I'll
was
see you
good.
soon. I
We'll
love
talk
all of
soon.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
everyone.
so much. Bye, Robin. Thank you for showing up. Sherry, bye. Mwah.
You see the twos, right? Okay, let me
Yes.
go. Bye.
You know what? Let me ask, Ursa had to go, but I wanna ask you all before I log off. Did you have any questions? Was there anything that you had for me before I log off for today? Any questions about anything that we talked about? Because if not, I thank you. Yeah, it gets real once we get to the root, you know? It can be uncomfortable, but it's wonderful because it's so freeing. It's wonderful. So I love y'all. If there's no questions, I will check y'all out in the Facebook group. Come on and join the challenge. We making it happen. And I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you, Ty.